title of this is Founder Journey, Stories of Success and Struggles. Now, I'm assuming you guys have had no struggles at all, so we won't even talk about those. Just kidding. As we talk about with, I think you guys have heard me talk about a lot, but I try to talk about, with founders too, is really the founder journey is so much of a roller coaster. Even when you think you're on the verge of success, you could experience difficulty and be riding down the roller coaster, or on the verge of failure and then experiencing success, and you're riding up the roller coaster. So there's so many ups and downs. I think it's really important to hear founder stories. It's great. It's been great for you guys to share with each other, and now to get the chance to, facilitate you guys sharing those stories out with everybody else. I think that's really helpful too. We definitely want to talk about the struggles as well as the successes. There are both. So, okay, but Lydia, I wanted you to tell this story. You just said, how did you get to Baltimore? Again, you didn't sound like you're from Baltimore. Where are you from, and how did you get to Baltimore?
So going way, way back, I'm originally from the UK, and I spent so many donkey years in investment management, so buy side Wall Street. That is how I train. I train as an analyst, investment product specialist, and a salesperson. So that to be able to do what I was doing back then, it required a lot of, obviously, training and sort of, working with really large pension funds, as well as some very cool investment management firms, which, helped me to become who I am, basically. But it got to a point where I thought, okay, some of the things that we do in-house, look, we can use technology to do that much more effectively. So actually, when I came out of corporate and formed my first company, I started having the idea about how can we use technology to help investment teams get to the work that they do very, very quickly. That was the initial thought process. So, that this all happened way back in London, right? So I started looking at the problem and eventually, moved over to the US, right? So when I came over to the US, I've kind of done across West Coast, East Coast, sort of travel, spent some time in New York. And then eventually, I tried a couple of times getting into Techstars, trying to get into an accelerator program. And again, I'll tell the story of why I felt was very, very important for me to reshape my mindset from an operator, from an investment person, to actually creating a tech business, and why the accelerator, going through accelerator is very, very useful for me. So, tried a couple of times, eventually got through to Techstars, and I feel like that whole journey of coming to the US, trying different tech ecosystems and selling on Techstars from New York, from San Francisco to New York, and eventually selling in Baltimore, have been quite a very interesting journey. But also a space where I've been able to learn a lot about communities, about what it takes to build a technology business, about different accelerator programs, and what each one provides, for the founder. So, all in all, I would say definitely it has been, to your point, a roller coaster experience so far. However, that also have sort of helped us to shape us into what we are today. If I hadn't gone through this experience, probably I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have come through Baltimore. I would have had the experience that I've had with some of the advisors and mentors that I've had exposure to. So super grateful for all of that. Let me just stop here, and then we can unlock some of the elements, and also give some time to chat through it too.
No, that's great. And I do want to put a touch, one thing you said, which I think founders don't tip, and they wouldn't have a reason to know this, but they don't realize this at first. There's a difference between Techstars, the Y Combinators, the 500 startups. There's a lot of ways to win. I'm not saying anybody's better than, I like Techstars, but there's a lot of ways to win, but there's a difference, right? Like, it's not just, and you got to see some of that already. And even amongst Techstars, there's a difference between, accelerator programs, right? So that can be a struggle, frankly, right away.
Right, absolutely. So for me, before I went through an accelerator program, I was just trying things. It was like throwing things at the wall, throwing your pasta on the wall and see the pasta will stick to ensure that the food is cooked. So I was just trying a few things. I was very, very interested. And I don't know if you recall our conversation when we started the class, when you asked us what we wanted from the program and why we applied for the program. what I was very interested in knowing about is how do we build a sustainable, long-standing technology business,
Yeah.
right? It's a different mindset.
Yep.
It's creating value from fundamental principles of building a business, as well as obviously the fundraising and things like that on top of that. But I was very interested in understanding how it's done because I could see other people doing it. And granted, I didn't come from the tech industry at the beginning. I came from the buy side Wall Street, for the past 10, 15 years. So instead of me trying to now continue on my journey by trying things out, I needed someone to guide me and show me how it's truly done. And to your point, I tried different accelerators. I've had different peekaboo experiences with different accelerators, and I didn't quite think that I would get that with those accelerators, right? So, but with Techstars, I soon realized that the emphasis is number one, building a business, and then number two, the technology, building a technology business, which is very, very special with the program. So.
I love that. That makes me very, very happy. I mean, there's so many ways to get sidetracked in the process and picking the right place to grow.
Right.
Yeah, that's a tough choice you have to make like right away before anything starts. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad you pointed that out.
Right.
Rich, talk to me about it. I know I'm cheating obviously because I know some of the background. You've tried this startup journey before. Talk to me about your path to secured health.
Yeah, no. A little bit prior to starting Secured Health, I was part of the early founding team of a different company called LiveChair, and we learned a lot of struggles to that, right? We were able to solve the problem in terms of we identified the problem with the customers, we got in front of like the different insurance companies that we're selling to, but the biggest problem is we didn't think about scalability, and that hurt us in the long run, right? We were building as quick as we can without thinking about, is this going to be sustainable? Is this a business at the end of the day, or are we just burning through cash? And unfortunately, it was, we were burning through cash, right? And that's where, I Secured Health and talking to Adam and the Techstars team, the biggest reason why I chose Techstars was to solve that issue. Sure, I could get in front of the customers and do the same thing again, but it's going to end up in the same result. Our goal this time is to build something that's sustainable, that brings value to all stakeholders, and that's going to be around the next 10, 15 years. So that's the biggest reason why I chose Techstars, and it's the reason why we're doing it differently this time, and we have the mentors and the leadership behind it that's going to make it happen. So
that's awesome. And part of what I wanted to draw out, and knowing that story, and for the sake of the people watching, that was actually one of the things I loved about your business, was that you had tried a piece of this before and it didn't work for a couple different reasons that you had already worked on identifying. And I loved that. That felt to me like a very this is the kind of founder I wanted to be working with, because not only just for all your personal qualities, but you had some scars. Like I think people who have scars make better founders, because you know how to avoid getting those scars again. And you've done that. I mean, you really have done that really well this time, and you've had success. Do you feel like you're seeing a difference in the approach to like your decision making, how you're building the team and all that kind of stuff? Can you talk a little bit about that?
100%. And the first thing we did was the team culture, right? Who are we bringing on the team, or what value are they providing? And it even came down to choosing my co-founder. This is the person, it's kind of like a marriage, right? You're going to be with them for the long run, and you want to make sure it's someone that brings value, but that also has the opportunity to have humility, right? You're going to get criticized left and right, whether it's me, my co-founders, everyone on the team, and you got to be able to take that, not to heart, but actually take it and grow with it. So that was the first big learning I had from that. Second is, I brought on a team of advisors, right, to make sure I don't repeat the same mistakes and run into those same traps. So, opportunity to bring on people that are extremely experienced in the Medicaid, Medicare space, but also startup founders in the past, including LiveChair CEO. He's one of our advisors right now, just, talking him back and forth. Hey, Rich, you're making the same mistake again, or avoid this at all costs. You know what's going to happen if you do this. So I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to have a great founding team, but also advisors backing us up every step of the way.
I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's great. So one of the things that you said, I want to jump off, and for you, Lydia, to maybe start with, one of the things I really try to do for myself is I try to be like really committed to ideas, but humble about the fact that I could be dead wrong. I make the joke. I have 3 older sisters, by the way. So I was beaten up by my sisters my whole life. There are many, many scars to prove for that. But the one who's just older than me, who beat me up the most probably, used to tell me, like when we were kids, you always think you're right. And I was like, well, like, of course I think I'm right. Like, I'm gonna think I'm right because I'm convinced that this is true. But I still think I'm right, by the way. She still says that. But I'm also convinced I have to like hold on to ideas humbly, knowing I could be wrong and I'm willing to be proved wrong. Lilia, can you talk about that as like the way, have you seen that play out? Because I'm sure I probably talk about that during the accelerator. Have you seen that play out in the way that you're building your business now?
Yeah, 100%. Again, I go back to the beginning of the class. It's like when you start, Adam gives you this sort of disclaimers to prepare you for what to expect. And one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning of the class that really stuck with me, but then I was sitting there thinking, oh, it's never going to happen to me, kind of thing, was that you mentioned, you said the problem or the product that you came to the program with is probably not going to be the same problem and product that you end up with the program. And so, and we've gone through that, right? It's like we came in thinking we're going to start straight ahead doing fine tuning AI models for the private market teams and things like that. And then we've ended up now focusing on dealing with the data aspect of the whole pipeline, right? It's the whole chain of building AI models. So we've gone back to stage one, really, because you have to get your data appropriate. You have to sort of align your data properly. So you can see that the problem is still big and the vision is still there. But how we are going through and how we are addressing the solution to solve the problem has tilted a little bit, all thanks to the program. And I feel that, one of the good things about, your class and the mentors and advisors that you give us exposure to is the fact that they help me to break the problem down into stages. And it also got magnified when we started going down into the market. So I should warn everybody, if you get onto Adam's program, customer engagement is strong #1, right? So if you're not, if you're shy about talking to people, please do prepare yourself. But it's very, very important because you do not want to build a product out of isolation from your customers. And what Adam and the team pushed me to do is actually go out and speak to people. So in that process of speaking with people, we identify sub problems to solve before we get to the sort of big vision, big problem, or big solution that we created. And I feel like that's been very, very helpful because had we not done that, we'll probably keep on spinning around on our tails, trying to get to that big thing without dealing with the smaller things first, There's a big saying that don't despise the early days or small beginnings. And this is one typical example of it. You have to deal with a smaller problem, solve that for customers first, and in addition to that, we're dealing with businesses, right? B2B investment firms. So get that, I would say, alignment and confidence from your customers of your product in that process to be able to get to the final goal. So, these are some of the things that have come out of the program. And I do appreciate the fact that we got here to be able to realize this. Had we not done that, it would have been a problem.
Yeah, that's so great. And it's not easy to do. I mean, it is really, and I have to give you credit. You've been one of the people I think who has been consistently optimistic about your own ideas, but willing to reconsider them in the face of customers and customer feedback, because that is not what you're hearing, how that practically plays out. Well, actually, I'll ask you, how does that practically play out when you're talking to me or you're talking to customers and your idea essentially is missing? Like, you're not kind of hitting the target. What does it seem like? What does it feel like? Just play it out for me.
Well, you get things like, no, two things. You get things like, no, this is not ready yet. Oh, this is what we're really interested in. These are problems that we really experiencing, right? And so what you force us to do on the customer interviews, or maybe let me backtrack a little bit. First of all, in the classroom, having Ada and some of the, tutors come in to help us to understand the product journey, and you taking us through the product journey as well. Very, very critical. So then you go back to the homework and look at what you're doing and align that with what you've been told from class. Then we've sort of formulated our first customer questionnaire, right? So first customer questionnaire was based on what we thought the problem was. So we go in asking people over calls, sending out surveys, asking those questions through, surveys. The responses were coming back and we were getting some no's, a lot of no's, right, in certain areas. So then on the no's, I was like, okay, so if it's not this, what is it that you want to be solved along this journey? So prodding people, not turning away when people say no, but actually asking them a different question. And so through that process, we kind of found like a common thread coming through our customers, our initial customers. And obviously we came back to you, we had the conversation back and forth. And the direction was, you have this way of turning, you call it like turning the diamond in a different way. So that the light shines on it. I do remember. So the light shines on it and you see the diamond from a different perspective, which is very, very powerful, right? Because then your mind it expands a little bit and it expands so forth. So out of that process, and it's not just a one-time event, we have the conversation with one person, we ask we hear the no, we probe, we go back, we reformulate the questionnaire. So it's very iterative, if you see what I mean. Then we go back again and ask the questions. And eventually you see that common thread coming through very nicely. And before you know it, you have a very nice sort of, problem being sort of, emerging out of a bigger problem that you discovered. And they're all very important, it kind of sounds like frustrating, but it's very necessary if you're going to build the right foundation for your business to grow. What you don't want to do is hurry up, create a product, and then break everything down and come back down again. It's just, just not worth it. And I should say one more thing before I hand it over to you, Adam, which is that one of the things that became evident is the team, because there are certain people that might not be suitable for this sort of iterative process. It can be very frustrating for certain people. So for me, the sooner we realize that, the better, because some people just couldn't stay. And the accelerator is actually meant to push out any snotty items that you have in your system as a business. Yep. So as the pressure is coming in, certain people will be able to stand to it, and some people will not be able to stand to it. And I soon realized that there are certain people that are not suitable for what I'm doing, and therefore, we had to part ways in between that. So all of that benefit of, Adam and the class and Techstars. So.
Well, and thank you. You're doing a fantastic commercial for me, but it's also just like, it is not like, it is pressurized, it is iterative. And if you keep sort of pushing in that direction on those sort of growth cycles in any startup, like you say, it pushes up the good things and it pushes down the bad things, and it makes everything a little bit more clear. So like the founder journey is these sweeps up and sweeps down of these moments, and it can be really tough. So thank you for sharing that. That's huge. Rich, talk to me about how you have identified your customer, because it probably would seem to people on the outside like it was obvious how you got to your customer. Talk a little bit about how you kind of came to saying, no, this is who we're supposed to be selling to, and this is what we're going to sell them, and this is how we're going to sell it, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, similar to Lydia, I came into the cohort thinking I have my refined product. I'm just going to go sell now. Don't really need to do customer discovery. Learned really quick that I was wrong, right? I think Adam can attest to this. I would stop by a tiny bit wrong, right? But I know Adam, we had a lot of conversations where I would pop by the office and be like, hey, I think I need a pivot. I think it's happened at least 3 to 4 times throughout the 3 months. And, it's so important, especially in healthcare, honestly, any B2B, is listen to the businesses that you're selling to, right? Because at the end of the day, if it doesn't provide value, if it's not a hair on fire problem, you don't have a business. You have a cool, unique product, but is anyone going to pay for it? Is anyone going to actually help, generate revenue for you? Probably not. unless that's the case. So, for us, it was super tough, again, in front of the healthcare space. It's a very closed industry of high regulation where, you can't just send out a cold email and be like, hey, I'm building this company. Can we sit down and discuss my product or what your problems are? It's unfortunate that sometimes you need to have those network and the connections, right? And luckily through Techstars, and also the partnerships they developed with Upsurge. So I want to give them a shout out as well. They've done amazing during the cohort. They introduced us to key players, right?
Got the hat on.
Yeah, got the hat on, exactly. Definitely want to rep them. But they were instrumental for us to get in front of customers, right? Whether it's a lunch with a customer, whether it's a cold email, it was an opportunity for them to give us a chance, right? To sit down, listen to their problems, and give them, have them give honest feedback about where we're at as a company or a product. Would they actually pay for this? And through those conversations, we were able to make 3 to 4 pivots. And even to this day, we just landed our first customer, and I was able to tell Adam and Jessica right before this call. But I'm super stoked about that. But even with that, right, we're going to continue making pivots because we're going to get feedback from the customer during the pilot. Like, Rich, this is working out, this isn't. So it's a continuous process, right? To build a sustainable business, you got to provide value at the end of the day. So
I love that. And that I think is a big part of it's part of how I know I like to approach, but I think Techstars in general approaches, and most good accelerators, I say, approach building businesses is you have to kind of go slow at first to prepare to go fast. And the going slow can be really frustrating. It can be very difficult because you're thinking like, wait, I came in with a product. I had a thing. I had 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever people interested in, and I was doing something. And now you're wanting me to slow down. But that is like Lydia, you were talking about, like wanting, what are you building on top of? And then sort of solidifying the foundation to really kind of build a big business. Because, there's a difference between product people, business people, all that. And it's possible to be all of them, but there are different skill sets and you have to kind of work them. Okay, we've talked about founder frustrations, getting started, some of the difficulties of kind of like riding the wave up and down. Let's talk about successes. Lydia, let's talk about a success that sticks out to you in this startup journey, something that was, sort of gave you a jolt, like, hey, I'm moving forward. This is a time or a thing or a customer or a product thing or whatever that is encouraging and kind of becomes a pillar and the role that's played since then.
Yeah, so 100%. So out of our customer interviews, once we kind of like identified, what exactly we should be solving or the problem that we should be solving now, the calls uptake started becoming quite frequent, right? So then I was able to refine my messaging or my outreach to people, and people were like responding to emails and having direct calls with us, which is quite, phenomenal. And most of the companies that we were speaking with were from Baltimore, right? So for me, that was like, okay, I had, I've been taken through this exercise. It's been proven now because there's kind of results coming out of it. And perhaps this is something that we should, stick to in terms of the playbook in getting to customers. So that was a very, very good one. That stuck with me for a very long, and I still use that in engaging with the market. I guess the other one would be understanding, the fundraising cycle, what to expect in there. I don't know whether we're going to touch on that in more depth later on, but understanding what it takes to, speak with investors and presenting your business so that they can see the value from that perspective. Because prior to that, obviously, you're pitching and it's all about you, but what about them, right? So getting that perspective in play, just sort of, helped me a lot in everything that we're building out here.
Wait, before you move on from that point, I think that is such an important point. Like people don't, and it's why I say it a lot, I'm sure. But the fact that people, I once had a job, and somebody from that job might be listening, so I won't say it. This was years ago when I was much younger. But they asked me to do a presentation, and I said, well, who's the audience for the presentation? And they hadn't even thought about the audience. They hadn't thought about, they're like, oh, well, does it matter? And I was like, well, of course it matters. Like, I know what I'm going to say, but who am I saying it to? Like that has everything to do with communicating. And so like bringing that perspective into fundraising is so important. Like, yeah, you know what you do, you know what your company is, you both have such great backgrounds and depth and history in your fields, and you know what you've built, some great products. but like, who are you talking to? Like, how do you make it valuable to them? You know,
Right.
that is so important. The audience. Sorry, go ahead.
Right.
I'll stop.
Right. And then lastly, you know, the things that we learned from our advisors, right? So we are very fortunate to have Nicole Beston as one of our mentors, and then Rafaela and Don Wilson, who's now become our advisor. So the learnings from their experience. So Nick sharing candidly and he wasn't holding back or anything, you know,
It
how
always does.
yeah, yeah.
We love
How he
it.
built from 0 to 1 to now a Series D company. So that for me was like eye-popping, you know, experience. And it sort of, for me, it helps me through, whilst we even outside of the program, when I face something or when I'm going through an issue or when I'm frustrated or even when I'm celebrating something. I remember that there are others that have gone ahead of me that have gone through the same experience, right? And that's been very powerful. That's been a success that I think had I not come through the program, perhaps I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be connected with people like that. Then lastly on product, how do you build the product? Very, very important, very key. So someone like Don Wilson is a product guy, a mentor that I got exposure to through the program, right? And him taking time out to really sort of mentor us and drive and support how we building the product out in a very strategic way, so we don't get frustrated. So we know how we're going to go from 0 to 0.001 to, you know, so on and so on before we get to 1. It's been a really great, you know, experience, success for me personally, as well as the business. So.
Awesome. I love it. Rich, I know you talked just about a big customer, but if talk to me about maybe another success, or maybe that's a success. Talk to me about a moment of success.
Yeah, I would say aside from like the big customer, as you guys know, that's probably the biggest one, right? You want revenue. That's the best sort of money coming into your company. But from the fundraising side, you know, with my previous job and the other company I was a part of, I wasn't really on the fundraising side. So building a financial model, telling the story with the numbers, I wasn't really good at that. So relying on not just our mentors, but also Adam and our EIR, you know, it really helped me develop, all right, how do I tell a story for the next 3 to 5 years for investors to be hooked in, right? In the beginning, it was just random numbers. And, you know, throughout the progress of the cohort, we were able to captivate a few investors, and a few of them were and are still interested in leading the round. So, you know, definitely take advantage of that. That was a pretty big success on our end, where none of us, my co-founder and I, we don't have a financial background. We weren't investment bankers, or we didn't really know how to model things out. But utilizing the resources that Techstars was able to provide, but also relying on the people within the cohort, we were able to tell that story pretty efficiently, and it also helped us have better clarity, right, on what we need to do to hit certain milestones to get to that point. And that's helped us tremendously with the raise so far. And we're hoping the fruits we get the fruits of the labor pretty soon. But other than that, customers, you know, that's the biggest thing we've got out of the cohort in terms of what's going to propel us to the next level. And can't be thankful enough for those introductions.
That's great.
One last thing to add, Adam,
Yeah.
sorry. Just to add to that metric setting. That's another thing that's just stuck with me since joining the program. So what metric setting means is, you know, Adam support you and help you to identify 1 or 2 metrics that you want to track for your business. So this is specific to your business. And so you might think it's a big thing, but it's actually the smaller things that you do on a daily basis, and being able to measure, you know, how that is changing on a week by week basis, right? So that for me was something new. Well, we knew about KPIs and whatnot, but actually defining and refining that to the minutiae of business building was very, very important. And we still use that method today. And then connected to that, you know, being accountable. So accountability meant on a weekly basis, you're gonna write your weekly activities and sort of, you know, dividing that into your wins and your losses. Don't be shy about the losses, because the losses are expected. If you're not having any losses in the week, that is a big question mark. You should be having losses in the week. So being accountable about, you know, what is happening on the different strands of business building, sales and marketing, people, product, your metrics, is also like one of the things that I learned through the program, and it stuck with me, that I use for myself on a weekly basis and obviously on a monthly basis, updating you and other investors in our pipeline. So just wanted to add those two. I forgot about in the first instance.
No, I love that. And I love the idea that, like, if you're not having losses, you're not trying things that are hard enough. You need to be having some losses. I mean, everybody, like founders for sure, but everybody, you should be failing at some things, because if you're not trying things that are hard enough. You're sticking to the shallow end of the pool, and that's hardly worth it. I love that. That's great. And Rich, you said something I wanted to amplify too. Like, I think oftentimes founders outside of the process, when they're first starting, sometimes, and I include myself in this, by the way, when I was a founder, I was part of a few venture-backed companies and a few just non-venture backed. But originally, when I kind of first started the whole process, I thought either fundraising was either magic, and I just had to be in the right circles. And sometimes that's true. Like, if you're Adam Newman, I mean, yes, if you're Adam Newman, you're going to get money. But most of us don't live in that world. It's not magic of just, you definitely get money. And it's also not impossible, meaning you can never get money. Like, there are ways, there are words, there are methods, there are metrics, there are, techniques. Like, you can get better at it. It's a skill you can acquire, essentially. And that was, I'm happy that you guys got that message. And I try to give that message to anybody I can. Like, it's not magic one way or the other. It's not magically possible or impossible. And you can get better at it. Everybody can get better at it. So yeah, that's great. I love that. Let's talk about founders, other founders. I think one of the things I really hope for is not that everybody in every class has to become best friends. I don't think that's that's not what we're trying to create. We're not trying to create just a personal network. We're trying to create, though, a professional network that's close, within each class. And then also kind of echoing out, right? Like, so other Techstars Equitech companies to you guys, your class first, other Techstars Equitech, and then other Techstars companies. I really want to feel like your close professional network. Talk about the role of not only just maybe Techstars, but also any other founders kind of in your growth, your journeys. Lydia, I'll start with you again. Talk about what it means to be connected to other founders throughout this process.
Yeah, so there's a saying that if you wanna, what is it? I'm trying to get it. If you wanna
go fast,
go fast, go if you wanna change the world, go in a pack. It is very, very true. Because the worst thing that you want to do is sort of build in isolation. And thankfully, through the program, I've come to know some really, really fantastic human beings that we got exposure to in our class. All very supportive, all kind of like, joining in and contributing to your success. And everybody's so happy when you're succeeding, and everybody comes around you when things are not going that well. So we met some very great people. Obviously met Rich and, Shauna and Lavina and all those people, some of whom are very local and some of whom are, spread across the US, which is fantastic. And the core thing is, the really good thing is the camaraderie as you're building a business. You never know what's going to happen to you. And you never know where, obviously everybody wants to build like $1 billion business, but along the journey, you build in a pack, you all enjoy the success, right? As you get to the goal. And then the connection with people or other founders that have come before us. So one of the advantages that we had in the class was Adam bringing in some of the founders from the DC class, one of the founders from the Ecotech class prior to that. Was very, very, great for my experience hearing what they got from the program and how they navigated, some of the challenges and opportunities and where they are right now. Gave me something to look forward to. And that, I guess, lastly, going to, we went to the New York Tech Week, didn't we? Which gave us exposure to other founders that we haven't actually met before. Through Techstars and sort of beyond. So, awesome. And by the way, I should mention that, when we ended the class, we didn't actually, everybody didn't disband. There were a couple of us that are still in connection. Rich and I, we still continue some of the cultural practices that we started during the program, like the CEO forums, which continues to be a very helpful platform for us to share what we're going through with each other.
Awesome. I love that. Rich.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of echo what Lydia was saying. Just to start off with the cohort that we were a part of, I know they've been a tremendous help, right, in terms of holding you accountable with your KPIs. And I know Lydia personally, I can speak on that too. I know she's been sending us emails, right, about, hey, you guys should reach out to these investors. They might be interested in your round, or they're definitely within your backyard. And I appreciate that, right, because that's something we wouldn't have noticed without our cohort members giving us those advices or giving us little referrals here and there. So I appreciate that a lot, and definitely take advantage of that, right? Build relationships with your colleagues within the cohort. And I haven't really announced this to Adam. I don't think I even told you this yet, but we potentially might be working with one of your previous companies in DC
Really?
on a joint venture. So it's not fully signed yet, but
Interesting.
our
Okay.
advisors in connection with them, and it's an exciting update where the
Wow,
Techstars network is hearing about each other,
that's awesome.
and essentially we're helping each other succeed, right? And this would be
Hmm.
a big joint venture with a big health plan called United Healthcare. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them, but
Oh, I know
big
you're
name.
talking. Okay.
So definitely take advantage of utilizing the previous
Awesome.
alumni as well, because they've been there, they've done that, and they can help you get across at least the first initial hurdle. So definitely look out for those options and opportunities.
That's so great. Wow. I mean, honestly, like it is, and it really does just prove itself over and over and over and over. Like the give first part of the Techstars universe may be the best part. Like the fact that we come in and we say, we invest, we make a real investment. We don't just ask you to do stuff. We make, we put money in, we invest our time, we invest our energy and try to demonstrate give first. And then we ask you to do that too. I don't know if all founders know that. Like, I just told some new founders who are coming into the network, like, we want you to give first. And the fact that then you become part of a group of people who've been asked to give first, they tend to do that. Not everybody, but like they tend to be those kind of people. That's a huge thing. And I'd love to hear that like there's a joint venture out there that is going to be in the works. And it's like two people, if I got to bring them both into the universe and that makes it happen, that feels like I've done something right. Like, I mean, that is how this should work. It doesn't mean that everybody shouldn't build their own company and try to have their own success, but like the world is so much bigger when we all just sort of allow space for each other like that. I love that. I love that. That's great news, man. Very cool. Wow. Okay. See, the world is going to be good, Jessica. It's going to happen. Okay. I think I'm going to go to questions now so that
Yeah.
we can see if there's any questions.
Yep.
You
That
guys-
sounds great.
That's good. Okay. Let's see
Yeah,
what we
that sounds
got in
great.
the chat.
Awesome. So I am going to spin this first question a little bit because you all have given such great advice today, and thanks for sharing all of these vulnerable pieces of your founder journey. So the first question was, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for fellow founders? But I'm actually going to flip that a little bit because you've shared a lot already, which is I believe a lot of founders that are joining us here haven't gone through an accelerator yet. And so they might be interested or looking at different programs. So what are your top 3 pieces of advice for founders prior to the accelerator experience for them to prep and get ready for that? What would you say?
I'll let you guys go.
You want to go first, Lydia?
Okay, go ahead. Oh, so you want me to, okay, sorry.
Yeah, did you want to go first?
Okay.
It's up to you.
So I thought you were gonna go first. So I would say, do the research around, the class that you wanna become part of. Spend some time understanding the MD that you're gonna join and understanding his background, what he's interested in, what his class is like. That would really, really help you to get your mind right, get an understanding as to who's going to be mentoring and leading your program, helping you to, get to that $1 billion valuation company that you want to. Very important. So that's point number 1. The second point that I want to highlight here is the process for applying to Accelerator may seem a bit daunting, and it seems like there's a lot that you have to do, but actually, as you're going through it, there's a lot more that's also coming to you that will help you personally as a founder, and then secondly, your business. So all the questions that you're going to be, or the questionnaires that you're going to be filling out, in the process of you filling out the questionnaire, is actually helping you to think through things a bit, right? So that's number 2. And then point number 3 is, look, if you apply to, try to the strategy is try to apply to a couple of classes, right? Obviously, you love Adams, you want to apply to Adams class, but also look at other classes too. So it's like a numbers game in a way, going through the same program. And if you do not get in, I would say try again. Your job as a founder, you never give up anyway. Your goal is to get the result no matter what, right? So when you're hit with a block, try again. Personally, I applied about 3 times. It's not a shame for me to admit this, but I applied about 3 times. And I feel like every time that I applied, my application got better and better along the way.
That's actually just a little bit lower than the average. I think the average, Jessica, tell me if I'm wrong, is above 3. I think it's between 3 and 4 before people get accepted for Techstars specifically. I think that's right.
Yeah, that is correct. And also just a stat for everyone here too. So in the final classes of about 12 founders or companies that get selected, about 50 to 60% of those are at least 3rd or 4th time applicants. So it's pretty common for people to reapply. It's a very competitive application process as well. So yeah, that's correct. Awesome. Thanks for that. What about you, Rich?
Yeah, I would say the first one is really believe in your product and go all in on it, right? What you're building, if you're the founder and you're not believing 100% in it, you're not going to succeed. And I think the accelerator would be a waste of time unless, I think everyone, I can speak on behalf of our cohort, they were fully passionate. You're willing to give up everything to build that product and bring it to life. And that has to be the mentality you go in with, right? Because the cohort's going to move really quick. You're going to get customer introductions left and right. You're going to have opportunities to sit with investors that need you to sell your vision to them, right? So it's a very fast-paced process. And I think that was probably the biggest tip is you can't have one foot in the door and one foot out. It has to be all in. So I would say that's probably the biggest one is. Second one is having your team together, whether you're a solo founder, whether you have co-founders with you, everyone has to be on board and you have to make sure, addressing, some of the other questions is you got to have the right co-founder because it's like a marriage, right? And you're gonna have some stressful days during the cohort and you got to have that partner with you that's going to get you through the storm and that's going to help you come out a better company. So I would say that's the second biggest tip. And third, it's not as relevant, but I would say take care of yourself, right? As a founder, at the end of the day, you're human, so you're going to feel burnout, whether it's customer rejections, whether investors are saying, hey, this is not a viable company, your company best, right? Along with your customers. So take care of yourself, have those mental days, those days where you have mental rest and, make sure you dedicate time towards other stuff outside of work. So I would say those are probably the 3 biggest tips before you join an accelerator or a cohort.
Yeah, I love all of that. So thanks so much for sharing that. And I'll add a little bit too, which is something that has really helped out our MDs is if you come with a clear idea of what you want to work on during the accelerator, right? Like what are your pain points? Because the point of an accelerator is to help you do the things that you can't do on your own anymore, right? We're going to bring our resources, our mentors, our investors, all of that, but it's great for us to know what you want to accomplish as well during the program. So come with that. Rich, you mentioned founding team a lot. I mean, everybody on the call did really. And I see a lot of questions popping up about co-founders and how important that is. Do you all have any tips about how to find the right team? Were there any places that you look specifically? Because it seems like that's an important piece to get your startup running.
Definitely, not too many people know the story, but I did have another co-founder in the beginning and it didn't work out, right? So, you got to live and learn, and I hope no one makes the same mistake, but it does happen. In terms of like advice to where to find the right co-founder for your business, leverage your own network, like ask around, like it could be a close friend or it could be a colleague of a colleague, right? Ask around to see what areas of expertise do they have. What value do they bring to the table? And honestly, you got to have a good working relationship with them. So sit down with coffee, grab lunch with them, even do a trial run, right? Make sure they're a good fit for the team for the long run because they could be good on paper, but behind closed doors, if you bring up an objection to like an idea and they don't respond nicely, that's a terrible toxic relationship to be in. So you got to have, you got to trial it out before anything. I would say that's probably the biggest tip. And second is leverage your network, right? Find someone that your friend or your colleague you trust. So
Yeah, just to jump off that, if you don't vesting schedule, if you don't know what a vesting schedule is, figure that out. That means basically, even if you bring somebody in after they're in your network and you spend a little time, you still want to make sure they vest their equity slowly or over time, because you really don't want to end up with, say, I fall in love with somebody I met because at a startup week, and then they're we just it's whirlwind, we're 50-50, this is going to be great, and we split up the equity right away, and it's my idea, and all of a sudden we're at an impasse, and how do we make decisions, and now we can't agree on investors, and then everything goes bad. You don't want to do that. So vesting schedules, equity vests over time. Anybody can help you in your network, and if they don't know what that is, find somebody who does. And then take time. It takes time.
Yeah.
Lydia,
Richard
just
said
add any-
Yeah, Richard said everything, but I was just going to add that, starting gradually is very, very important. So starting on a small scale, working together, and sort of seeing how the temperament mesh is very, very key, because not everybody is a 0 to 1 person. And starting at this stage is a 0 to 1 mentality, meaning things change every day. And so if your partner or your co-founder or the founding team kind of handle that stress, it's actually going to pull you back versus helping you to accelerate much faster. So
that's a great point.
That's great. Thank you. This is a big question from LinkedIn, so narrow it down however you'd like to. But what would you say is the biggest struggle that founders are facing today? Big one.
Do you guys want me to start, or you start? You start. You're smarter than me.
Yeah, I can bring up something. I think this can be said about everyone, right? It's finding customers, having the right product market fit and finding customers that are willing to pay for it. I think a lot of people have good ideas, and including ourselves, right, in the beginning, and we've talked about it. It's not just me. I've seen so many founders talk. They have a great founding team. They have a great advisory board. They have a cool product, but are customers willing to buy it, right? And that's gonna be the make or break for most companies. Is, are you gonna have customers that's gonna help you keep growing the company quarter over quarter? And if you don't, then I think that's a big problem that a lot of us face on a continuous basis, where you have to continue that customer discovery process every few months or so. So
and I guess one of the big problem is there's a lot going on in the world at the moment. You see this big news, somebody's raised here, this is happening with this founder, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're not careful, you might think that you're actually not doing anything, and you start feeling a little bit down on yourself. But actually, what I learned through the program is that the founder's job at this stage is to search and search, keep searching. So the mentality that your job right now is not having a finalized product, but actually is really refining, the product, so that you get to a place where you can get early, PMA, product market fit. So having that sometimes is very challenging to see other people sort of share their big news, and you're still going through the early doldrums of you get into the early product market fit. So the mindset is very, very important. And I think you can obviously, change what is happening in the market. It is what it is. It's what is happening, but you can definitely reframe your story and your mindset and your product to see what investors are looking for if you're fundraising, or even what your customers want if you're speaking with customers.
Mm-hmm.
So good. So these guys are good.
Perfect. We have another one from LinkedIn, and I think this is a really fun question. So what's the most impactful experiment or iteration that you tried during the program that you saw some good results from, and it transformed your trajectory a little bit? So maybe Adam, you might have an example as well, in addition to Rich and Lydia, but if there's a startup that you saw in one of your classes that experimented a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you one I actually did myself during the class. And we do financial modeling in the class, and it's something that is not necessarily, I don't think everybody necessarily pays attention to it, but I think it's so helpful. And it's not helpful in exactly the way we always think. So a financial model, for those who don't know, is basically what are the elements of my business that go in terms of the finances, the pluses and the minuses, the costs, or the revenue versus the costs. Figure all those out in kind of a time sequence and try to model it out over 3, 4, 5 years to see what cash flow looks like and when I might be profitable and all that kind of stuff. So there's a measure of, there's a million ways to do it. And there's like really fancy models that are, pre-baked and you put in your numbers and they can look pretty. But I like the idea that we try to build them from scratch as well. And we don't always do it. Not necessarily everybody does, but we try to at least talk about it, what it would be to build a financial model from scratch. Well, I did one while we were in the class, just because I needed something to do while other people were working. And I built a model for a very simple investment fund that I was thinking of just as like, oh, I think this would be a great idea. This seems like a no-brainer. Let me build the model around this investment fund. It's a way to practice the skill, keep doing it. And I built it with the formulas in Excel, put the pieces in myself and did the formulas here in the background. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is not a good model. This doesn't make any sense. And until I built the model myself, it made perfect sense in my head. Until I built it on the Excel sheet, I didn't realize it didn't actually make financial sense. It was a short-term win and a long-term loss. And I didn't know that until I built the model. So like, that's the kind of thing I hope to be doing in this class with absolutely every business. And it's individual what it's going to take to kind of break through. It's not going to be the financial model for everybody. But for me, it was like on that investment fund idea I had, I was like, oh, no, this is not a good idea. I should not spend any more time thinking about it. And that's a huge win. Like putting something aside that's a waste of time is a huge win. So yeah, I'll say that.
Thanks. That's a great example. I'm going to wrap us up with one more question, which is, what is some advice that you have for a founder that has applied but was not selected? Any words of encouragement or advice there?
Me specifically there, or these guys?
Just to all three of you. Yeah, I think for all three.
I'll let you guys go first.
I mean, having gone through the failure experience myself, I would say keep trying. Look at the application that you did the last time around. Compare that to how you're responding to this season, the application, how you respond to the questions. Invest some time in building a relationship with the MDs, and not just the MD, but also the team around the MD. So those are the sort of things that I tweak a little bit from my previous experience to what got me into Adam's class. Taking some time and learning from that experience is very important. And then lastly, the mental state. Please don't feel disheartened that you didn't get through the first time around, because remember, this is like a global application, right? So, even if you're applying to Adam's class or some other class, there are applications coming from all over the world, also sort of, trying to get his attention. So don't get disheartened. Just keep going, and definitely at one point it's gonna crack. The door is gonna open for you. So hopefully that will help. That helps somebody.
Yeah, kind of echoing off Lydia, two things I would say is, don't get discouraged, right? It doesn't mean if you get rejected, doesn't mean your company isn't ready or is it worth it. Maybe, it could be other factors, right? Because, there are thousands, if not hundreds of different companies, right? Competing for the same slots for each cohort. And I would say the second one is set KPIs for yourself, right? Have these KPIs and goals you want to hit prior to the next application cycle to make yourself more attractive for an investment or a spot in the cohort. You can't come back with the same application. Come back stronger than ever and prove yourself, right? Not just for the accelerator, but just for the company itself. Progress it within that time period, and you have a better chance of the next acceptance. So.
Yeah, and quickly I'll bounce off that. That's if you can think of us as just one more thing that is appropriate for that life cycle of your business, that makes for a better application, first of all, because it tells me you're not thinking of us as a destination. We're not the only thing that's going on in your business. You're growing no matter what, and we're just one of the ways you want to grow, and it's appropriate to grow now. But if I miss you this time, for whatever reason, because somehow, I got 10,000 great applications and I have to somehow choose 12, I want to feel, you want me to feel, and I want to feel like I'm going to miss them the next time. because they're growing and they're still going to be pursuing this thing with or without me. They're still going to be going. I'm just one of the milestones they're trying to reach along the way. You want me to feel that sort of FOMO. That's what works to get people be like, I have to have these guys, you know. You want, because rejection sucks. Nobody likes to be rejected. But every time you talk to an investor is not the last time you're going to talk to them, first of all, probably. And it's also not make or break for your company. You have to give them the sense that like, I'm growing with or without you. The only question is, do you want to be on the ride? So that's how you get it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you all so much for your time today. And honestly, I hope everybody on this call has gotten some piece of advice, whether it's to apply to Techstars or just for your founder journey in general. To add on to Adam as well, we have a lot of founders that attend a lot of our events. And I just had a founder that emailed me and said, hey, I didn't get into a program, but I used the pitch series from last time and I was able to get an investor because of that. And so, you know, always come to our events, like they're all free. And I just shared the pitch series in the chat for everyone here as well. So that way you can access that. It's coming up in September. But thank you all again for joining us. Thanks for your insights. And we hope to catch you at the next event.
Thanks, guys. Follow Lydia and Rich.
Yes, follow all of us on, you know, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of that. All right, awesome. Thank you all. Have a good one.